It may be hard to believe, but on the world's biggest aircraft carriers, there are hangars with jet fighters worth billions of dollars, but no hangar doors. At first glance, this may seem like a simple design flaw or a way to save money, but could there be more to it? Could it be a secret, a new invention, or even as some joke, a portal to another world? Of course, putting aside the realm of fantasy, this mystery is too intriguing to ignore. The answer lies not just in the design philosophy and the evolutionary history of naval warfare, but also in surprising insights about strategy, technology, and about the indomitable human spirit pushing the boundaries of what's possible. It's safe to say that aircraft carriers are the most important ships in the U.S. naval fleet. Think of them as runways that can sail anywhere. Carriers can quickly launch and recover aircraft at sea, which means they can provide air support anywhere in the entirety of the world. They've enabled the Navy to project air power long distances without relying on local bases for staging extensive operations. This is why they're often called aircraft superpowers. A naval ship called an aircraft carrier is complicated and extensive, but it can be roughly divided into two main areas: the flight deck and the hangar bay. The flight deck is the most visible part of an aircraft carrier. It's where planes take off and land. Below the flight deck is the hangar bay, which takes up more than 2/3 of the ship's length and is where the planes are stored and maintained when not used. The hangar deck is like a giant oversized garage, but for jets instead of cars. On a typical carrier, the hangar deck can hold more than 60 fighter craft, and some carriers' hangar decks can have 2 or 3 levels. It's an amazing sight, and you might wonder how these huge, heavy planes get from the flight deck all the way up to the hangar. For that, elevators do the trick. You might have seen trucks like the ones used to move commercial planes around the airport, pushing jets and planes onto the elevator. So now that you know a bit about the hangar bay, where it is on the aircraft carrier, and what it does, you might think that it has doors. After all, what's the point of a garage without doors? Surprisingly, that's not how it works. The one thing of utmost importance is the historical evolution of the design of these vessels over the years. The design of U.S. Navy aircraft carriers has evolved significantly over time. In the early days, aircraft carriers mainly were makeovers of other ships, and hangars were featured as superstructures. British carriers in the early days were designed with safety in mind, and their primary focus was on making the hangar bay a protected place that could withstand enemy attacks. That's why they preferred closed hangars that were part of the ship's structure, which made them more resistant to fire and damage. The hangar area was used to store and service planes to protect them and their crews from the outside world and possible fire hazards. However, the lack of space made it harder for the aircraft to move quickly during operations. Meanwhile, the U.S. Navy took a different approach. They added open-sided hangars to their carriers. These hangars were used for more than just storing planes. They also warmed up the engines before moving them to the flight deck for takeoff. This showed that they had a more flexible way of doing things. But it also exposed the plane and its crew to attacks from the enemy and bad weather. It's important to note that if a bomb goes off in an open-sided hangar, the damage is less than if it went off in a closed hangar. However, a blast in the hangar is more likely if it has open sides, making this a tricky situation. The British chose armored flight decks as an effective passive defense against bombs and kamikaze attacks that hit their carriers, while kamikazes hit the American carriers. This difference in approach came from the carrier's original goal, which affected the choices made during the design process. The adoption of open-sided hangars made it faster for planes to be set up and their engines to warm up, which was necessary for operational readiness. However, in cold or stormy weather, the benefits of open-sided hangars decreased, which led to a re-evaluation of the design. Also, closed hangars guard against projectiles and fire risks, which weren't as clear initially, but became increasingly crucial as naval aircraft and operations changed. The open-sided hangars on early U.S. Navy carriers made for a unified ventilation system. Smoke and heat would be transferred from the hangar deck to the lower decks if a fire spread to other parts of the ship. Kamikaze attacks during World War II destroyed the USS Bismarck and the USS Hornet as well. This made it clear that effective firefighting and damage control measures were needed. As a result, division doors were made to limit the fire in the area of impact. These 76-ton gates divide the hangar deck into 3 different bays. The conflag stations can open and close them. A conflag station watches over the safety and integrity of the hangar bay and must always be staffed if an airplane is in the hangar bay. Since then, this addition has been made to all U.S. aircraft carriers. Interestingly, the U.S. Navy says that its modern carriers, like the Nimitz class and Ford class, can handle 3 times the damage that Japanese air attacks did to the Essex class during World War II. You may wonder, what hangar doors are used for? Hangar doors are used for what a garage door is used for, but there are more technicalities and difficulties involved. The hangar doors make it possible to keep a climate-controlled area inside the hangar where planes can be stored, inspected, fixed, modified, and painted. Not only that, but they also provide a wall or barrier that can be opened and closed to let people, vehicles, and tools enter and leave. Another important job is protecting the plane's structure and systems from harm caused by salt water, wind, and sun. These doors also aim to keep out pests, vermin, and birds to do all of these jobs well enough. Hangar doors need to have good sealing quality on all sides. They also need to be strong and, based on the needs of the business, easy to open. Today, the U.S. Navy uses 3 kinds of hangar doors on their aircraft carriers. These depend on the weather and the safety measures of the airline. 2 or more sides that fold together make up a bifold door. They usually use hydraulic pistons or pneumatic actuators to move them inward or outward when they're open or closed. When the door is opened or closed, hydraulic swinging doors usually use pistons or electric motors to move 1 or more panels up and down. They can cut down on the height of the initial build or give you more headroom. When they're open, they can also be used as a giant sail. These are also more parts and costs for these doors than other types. Third, as assumed, we have the bottom rolling doors comprising several panels that slide along a track system. Usually, electric motors or hydraulic pistons move them. Depending on the task, they can be opened and closed one at a time or in groups. Bottom moving hangar doors are the most common type used by the military because they can be used for various tasks. They also don't need much upkeep as long as they're used and cared for properly. Hangar doors are essential during combat operations because they keep the hangar bay aircraft and people safe from enemy threats. Most of the time, the doors are made to resist blasts, bullets, and other forms of outside force. They protect against enemy fire and projectiles in lousy weather like high winds, rough seas, or extreme temperatures. The hangar bay stays safe and under control with the help of the hangar doors. By closing the doors, carriers can keep planes and equipment from getting damaged or affected by weather outside. This keeps them working and ready to use. In what ways do you think hangar doors could change in the future to meet the needs of Navy flights today better? Let us know what you think in the comments section below. You can't say enough about how important it is to keep hangars safe. The hangar doors are essential for keeping the bay safe and can protect you from an enemy attack. As we already discussed, traditional carriers preferred open hangar bays to reduce repair costs and make it easier for planes to move around. This design choice did, however, do some damage when fighting enemies. The USS Franklin had a bad ending during World War II. Attacks from enemy planes did a lot of damage to the Essex-class aircraft carrier USS Franklin CV-13 on May 19, 1945, while he was working off the coast of Japan. A Japanese dive bomber dropped 2 250-kilogram bombs on the ship, which sank. The flight deck was hit by these bombs, which then went off in the hangar deck, where dozens of fully fueled and armed planes were parked. The blast on the hangar deck set fire to the plane's fuel tanks, and a gas vapor explosion destroyed the deck. The blast and fires that followed did a lot of damage to the ship, killed 724 crew members, and hurt 265 more. But as bad as it sounded, the USS Franklin's armored hangar deck was a crucial part of its ability to survive direct hits and intense fires. The armored deck stopped explosions inside the hangar deck from reaching the fuel and ammunition storage areas below, which would have destroyed the entire ship. Unfortunately, the armored hangar deck wasn't enough to save the ship. The USS Franklin was missing its hangar. Recently, another event like this made armored hangar decks even more critical than before. While the USS Bonhomme Richard was docked in San Diego, California in July of 2020, a fire broke out in the lower storage area. The fire quickly spread to the upper decks, where the hangar bay and flight deck were located. The fire burned for 4 days, hurting 63 sailors and civilians before it was put out. The ship was damaged, and because it was too expensive to fix, the USS Bonhomme Richard was destroyed by fire because it didn't have an armored hangar deck. This was a choice made by the designers of the America-class amphibious assault ships because they wanted to carry more planes, especially the F-35B Joint Strike Fighter, which needed more space and weight capacity. To do this, the America-class ships gave up the armored hangar deck, which was thought to be an essential safety feature. Aluminum was cheaper and lighter than steel, but it was easier to set on fire and didn't hold up as well as steel. All of the hangar doors were now open for business. If not having hangar doors can cause so much damage, why then not make sure that they're built into every U.S. Navy aircraft carrier? What's so bad that can happen if the hangar bay doors are closed? As applicable and protected as they are, they can also do irreparable damage to the aircraft carrier and the million-dollar planes on board, putting the lives of the people working there at risk. Hangar doors aren't like regular garage doors in that they need a lot of upkeep. They're made of several feet of thick, heavy metal walls with complicated mechanical systems that make them move. Over time, parts like tracks, rollers, and hinges can break and must be replaced or fixed. Strong winds, storms, or waves can also damage the doors or make them unable to open or close properly. This adds to the carrier's overall maintenance workload. Additionally, hangar doors can add to the stress of unit operations and maintenance by making it harder for planes and personnel to get to and from the hangar. Another issue with the closed hangar bay is that it raises the cost of ventilation inside. Fumes from gasoline spills and other accidents can build up in enclosed hangars that don't have enough ventilation, and the exhaust fans can't keep up. These cancerous fumes can kill the people working inside, and the trapped gases can also cause large explosions inside the hangar bay that could be worse than enemy attacks. This is because closed hangars make it harder for planes to move. The lack of hangar doors can make the carrier more efficient because planes can be quickly moved in and out of the hangar bay without having to open and close the doors. This can be especially helpful during combat operations or when quick deployment of aircraft is needed to reduce the risks of hangar door problems. The U.S. Navy uses several technologies and methods to make hangar doors on aircraft ships work better. This makes sure that these critical parts work smoothly and safely. In the first place, hangar doors are made from high-strength, corrosion-resistant materials. This makes them last longer and lessens the need for regular repairs and upkeep. Unlike older doors, modern hangar doors are made to resist lousy weather like strong winds. To combat heavy seas and saltwater exposure, weatherproof seals and coatings help protect the doors and keep the hangar deck under control. Also, advanced fire protection systems are installed in the hangar bay to stop and put out fires and explosions on the flight deck and in the hangar bay. These systems often use a mix of water foam and gas agents to put out fires effectively. Finally, the personnel must be adequately trained. The crew needs to know the steps, so the U.S. Navy does regular training and drills to ensure that personnel know how to operate hangar doors and can act quickly in an emergency. At least 2 personnel should be required to operate the hangar doors, a panel operator and a safety officer. Before an operation, an observer or spotter should do an integrity check of the door along the inspection access and door trackways to look for foreign objects, trash, or other things that could damage or derail the operation. So in conclusion, what do you think is the hardest part of opening and closing hangar doors on one of these gigantic city-sized aircraft carriers? Have you ever stopped to consider the tech side of it? In the background, don't you think these huge doors are cool? Let us know what you think in the comments below. The pros and cons of aircraft ships' hangar bay doors are mixed. On one hand, they protect and store planes well, but on the other, they're complicated and are frequently open to outside attack and adverse weather conditions. Over the years, the U.S. Navy has dealt with these problems and developed new ways to use hangar doors more effectively and more efficiently. By improving design technology and operational procedures, the Navy has made hangar doors more efficient and far safer while lowering the risks that come with them. In this way, they ensured that the hangar bay doors would not be a problem, but rather a benefit for the aircraft carrier and its crew when used smartly and correctly. On the other hand, having armored flight decks, as we've seen, provides a lot of additional protection against outside forces, enemy attacks, adverse weather conditions, and can also help to dramatically reduce potential damage and death caused by fires aboard the carrier. In each of these situations, hangar doors, or the lack thereof, both pose tremendous pros as well as cons, depending on the context in which the carrier finds itself deployed. So what are your thoughts on all of this? Make sure you let us know in the comments section down below. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.